Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more Eat, Shoots, and Leaves. This hopefully is the last episode of the book because we've only got a few pages to go. So, yeah. But with that said, let's hop into it. Where does this leave people who love the comma and apostrophe? Where can we turn for consolation? Well, it is useful to remember how depressing the forecast for language used to be before the internet came along. 30 years ago, we assumed that television was the ultimate enemy of literacy and that under the onslaught from image and sound, the written word would rapidly die out. Such fears, at least, have been dissipated. With text messaging and emailing becoming such compulsive universal activities, reading and writing are now more a fact of everyday life than they have ever been. The text message may be a vehicle for some worry in verbal shorthand. CUB48. Yet every time a mobile phone goes beep, 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 annoyingly within earshot of the bus, we should be grateful for a technological miracle that stepped in unexpectedly to save us from a predicted future that couldn't read at all. As David Crystal writes in his book Language and the Internet, 2001, the Internet encourages a playful and creative and continuing relationship with the written word. The human linguistic faculty seems to be in good shape, he concludes. The arrival of NetSpeak is showing us Homo locans at its best. Punctuation, as we know it, however, is surely in for a rocky time. Before the advent of the internet, our punctuation system was very conservative about admitting new marks. Indeed, it held out for decades while a newfangled and rather daft system called the interrobang, invented in 1962, tried to infiltrate the system disguised as a question mark on top of an exclamation mark. The idea was that when you said, "Where did you get that?" you needed an interrobang to underline the full expression. And it is delightful to note that absolutely nobody was interested in giving it house room. But I'm sure they will now once they find out anything new is welcome today. People experiment with asterisks to show emphasis. What a day I've had. And also angle brackets. So have I. Yes, the interrobang will find its place at last, especially given that its name has overtones of a police interview terminating in an explosion. Violent path lab terminology is very much in vogue in the modern world of punctuation. Remember when you used to call the solidus a stroke? Yes, you can see the bullet points here, and here, sir. There are multiple backslashes, of course, and that's a forward slash. I would have to call this a frenzied attack. Did anyone hear the interrobang? Oh, yes, woman next door was temporarily deafened by it. What's this? Ah, you didn't see many of these anymore. It's an emoticon. Hold your head this way and it appears to be winking. Good God, you mean that's a mouth? You mean that's the nose? Good grief, then it's... Oh, yes, sir. There's no doubt about it, sir. The punctuation murderer has struck again. Is it an option to cling on to the punctuation and grammar that we know and love? Hope occasionally flares up and dies down. In May of 1999, Bob Hirschfield wrote a news story in the Washington Post about a computer virus far more insidious than the recent Chernobyl menace that was spreading throughout the internet. What did this virus do? Named the Strunkenwhite virus after the elements of Style by William Strunk and E.B. White, a classic American style guide. It refused to deliver emails containing grammatical mistakes. Could it be true? Was the world to be saved at a stroke, or even if we must, at a /? Sadly, no. The story was a wind-up. Hirschfield's intention in inventing the Strunkenwhite virus for the delight of his readers was simply to satirize the public's appetite for wildly improbable virus scare stories. In the process, however, he painted such a heavenly vision of future grammatical happiness that he inadvertently broke the hearts of sticklers everywhere. The virus is causing something akin to panic throughout corporate America, which has become used to the typos, misspellings, missing words, and mangled syntax so acceptable in cyberspace. The CEO of LoseItAll.com, an internet startup, said the virus had rendered him helpless. Each time I tried to send one particular email this morning, I got back this error message. Your dependent clause preceding your independent clause must be set off by commas, but one must not precede the conjunction. I threw my laptop across the room. If Strunkenwhite makes emailing impossible, it could mean the end to a communication revolution once held as a significant time saver. A study of 1,254 office workers in Leonia, New Jersey found that email increased employees' productivities by 1.8 hours a day because they took less time to formulate their thoughts. The same study also found they lost 2.2 hours of productivity because they were emailing so many jokes to their spouses, parents, and stockbrokers. This is one of the most complex and invasive examples of computer code we have ever encountered. We just can't imagine what kind of devious mind would want to tamper with emails to create this burden on communications, said an FBI agent who insisted on speaking via the telephone out of concern that trying to email his comments could leave him tied up for hours. Hirschfield's story ended with the saddest invention of all. Meanwhile, the bookstores and online booksellers reported a surge in orders for Strunkenwhite's The Element of Style. Given all that we know about the huge changes operating on our language at the moment, and given all that we know about the shortcomings of the punctuation system produced by the age of printing, should we be bothering to fight for the 17 uses of the comma or the appositive colon? Isn't it in the case, in the end, that punctuation is just a set of conventions, and that conventions have no intrinsic worth? One can't help remembering the moment in Lewis Carroll's The Hunting of the Snark when the bellman exhibits his blank map and asks the crew how they feel about it. What use are Mercator's North Poles and Equators, tropic zones and meridian lines? So the bellman would cry, and the crew would reply, they are merely conventional signs. Lewis Carroll, The Hunting of the Snark, 1876. But after journeying through the world of punctuation and seeing what it can do, I am all the more convinced we should fight like tigers to preserve our punctuation, and we should start now. Who wants a blank map, for heaven's sake? There is more at stake than the way people read and write. Note the way the Washington Post news story explains the benefits of emailing. It increased employees' productivity by 1.8 hours a day because they took less time to formulate their thoughts. If we value the way we have been trained to think by centuries of absorbing the culture of the printed word, we must not allow the language to return to the chaotic scriptio continuous swamp from which it so bravely crawled less than 2,000 years ago. We have a language that is full of ambiguities. We have a way of expressing ourselves that is often complex and elusive, poetic and modulated. All our thoughts can be rendered with absolute clarity if we bother to put the right dots and squiggles between the words in the right places. Proper punctuation is both the sign and the cause of clear thinking. If it goes, the degree of intellectual impoverishment we face is unimaginable. One of the best descriptions of punctuation comes in a book entitled The Fiction Editor, the Novel, and the Novelist, 1989, by Thomas McCormick. He says the purpose of punctuation is to tango the reader into pauses, inflections, continuities, and connections that the spoken line would convey. Punctuation to the writer is like anatomy to the artist. He learns the rules so he can knowledgeably and controlledly depart from them as art requires. Punctuation is a means, and its end is helping the reader to hear, to follow. And here's a funny thing. If all these high moral arguments have had no effect, just remember that the ignorance of punctuation can have rather large practical repercussions in the real world. In February of 2003, a Cambridge politics lecturer named Glenn Rangwala received a copy of the British government's most recent dossier on Iraq. He quickly recognized it in the wholesome copying of a 12-year-old thesis by American doctoral student Ibrahim al-Marashi, reproduced word for word, misplaced comma for misplaced comma. Oh yes, Rangwala noticed that there were some changes to the original, such as the word terrorists substituted for opposition groups, but otherwise much of it was identical. In publishing his findings, he wrote, "Even the typographical errors and anomalous uses of grammar are incorporated into the Downing Street document. For example, Marashi had written, Saddam appointed Sabir Abd al-Aziz al-Duri as head. Note the misplaced comma. The UK officials who used Marashi's text hadn't. Thus, on page 13, the British dossier incorporates the same misplaced comma. Saddam appointed Sabir Abd al-Aziz al-Duri as head. So we ignore the rules of punctuation at our political peril as well as to our moral detriment. When Sir Roger Casement was hanged on a comma all those years ago, who would have thought a British government would have rumbled on a comma and a Yob's comma at that 90 years further down the line? Doesn't it feel good to know this, though? It does. It really does. But that's the end of the book. Not a lot to go over in the end here, but we'll go over and look it over here. Discussion of the use of the shorthand through messaging. The letter C, the letter U, the letter B, the number 4, 8. Question mark. CUB4 8. It's like, yes, it handles the same message, but it feels lackluster, sloppy. They talk about, she talks about the interrobang. I love the little thing about the punctuation murderer. The use of the struck and white American style guide to writing. But yeah. Somebody wholesale just copying a report to turn in is like, really? Yeah. The misplaced use of commas. And then there's a little bibliography at the end, but we're not going through that. Yeah. End of the book. Like I said, it's a little short one, but I enjoyed it. If you're kind of a nerd, like I am in certain departments, you might have enjoyed it as well. Hard to say. Some people get a kick out of such things, some don't. So whatever, man. But we'll go ahead and end this episode there. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, later.